So Matt and I have been putting up some of the deer that he harvested today. If you could smell our house, it smells so wonderful, doesn't it? We've been canning deer meat. So we have a video about that. I'll link to that if you've never seen that done. It's such a wonderful way to preserve meat, isn't it?
It is.
It's so good. You could just eat it straight out of the jar, which is really what I want to do right now because it smells so good. It'd be very hot though. But it smells so good. You can, usually what we do is just warm it up anyway, but it smells so good and it's wonderful. But another great thing, in addition to putting the meat up, freezing it, or canning it, that we love to do when Matt gets to harvest a deer, is to eat some of it fresh. And our favorite thing to eat fresh is what we call tenderloin, which is technically the backstrap. Is that right? Backstrap, yeah. So that's what we're going to do today. Matt's going to cook me a delicious supper. He's going to have, what are you going to have? You're going to have...
We're going to have fried tenderloin and...
And if that kind of just be enough. But,
yeah. And some fried potatoes and onions. Or fried potatoes and ramps, excuse me.
Yeah, we've got a jar of ramps here that we're going to put... they smell good too, if you like ramps. And
probably some pickled corn and some biscuits.
Yeah, so I might make the biscuits and make it easy on Matt if he handles the rest. The pickled beans and corn we didn't make, but Papa makes, and it's just basically you open a jar, so that won't be too bad either.
It's good too.
So we're about to have a feast, and we're going to show you how. Of course, you probably know how to do all this anyway, but we're going to show you how Matt does the deer tenderloin, the deer backstrap, whichever you prefer to call it, and how he makes his fried potatoes and ramps.
So we're going to fry this backstrap. I'm going to cut it into pieces, and I'm going to beat it a little bit to tenderize it. Even though it's, you know, supposedly tender, it's not tender enough, I don't think. So we always tenderize it a little bit with you can use a coffee cup or a saucer. That's some of the old ways. I used to use the edge of a coffee cup years ago. And now I kind of use a ice cream spoon, put the meat in a bag and beat it with an ice cream scoop. It seems to work really well, and it's kind of fast, and it being in the bag, it don't get meat everywhere. I don't know where we came up with that from. That's a recent thing.
Yeah, you'd think after all these years we'd actually buy a meat tenderizer, but we don't.
Well, I've used the meat tenderizer, and I just soon do this.
Will you hold up a piece and show like how, and of course it would be personal preference, but about how thick is that you cut?
That's about 3/4 of an inch or so.
Yeah.
I just eyeball it, kind of like I do everything else.
You got some deer hair on it?
Yeah, a little bit here and there. Not much.
Okay, so that's the first step.
And it's all the, it's just the pure red meat. All the fat and the silver skin and the connective tissue's gone off of it. And when you get it down this clean, that's what makes it, in my opinion, makes it taste better. That's as good a meat as you can ask for right there, but it takes a little work getting it clean. I usually put 2 or 3 or 4 pieces at a time in and just isolate them within the bag. And then give them a few whacks.
You do it on both sides usually?
I do, yeah. Flip it over. That's pretty much it, and all that does is just breaks down the fibers of the meat a little bit, so it makes them a little more tender. They're not as chewy. Actually, it won't be any bit chewy. It'll be really tender and really good. Okay, now that I've got it all tenderized, now there's all kinds of ways of doing this. This is just my way. Put some flour in a gallon freezer bag, Ziploc bag.
Does it matter if you use all-purpose or self-rising?
No, it don't. So I'm not using the scoop as a measurement. I'm just using it because it's handy to get in there with. So, and to that, I always season the flour just with whatever I've got on hand or whatever strikes my fancy at the time, but always coarse ground pepper. Once again, no measurements. I'll just put it in till I think it looks good. And this is just an all-purpose meat seasoner. And a little bit of oregano. And a little garlic powder.
You need salt.
And a little bit of salt. One reason I like to use the bag is because then you can mix it up in the bag. And then just drop the pieces of meat in. And I usually try to put most of them in. I'll put a few pieces in at a time and shake it to be sure they get all coated before the rest ones get on top and they get stuck together. And then when it comes time to cook them, I just feed them straight out of the bag into the pan. Oh wow.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I'm about to get worried. And then once all that's in there and coated good, it can just sit there until it's ready to be put in the pan. I don't use a cutting board or anything to cut potatoes. I guess some people do. I just do it in my hands. I guess that's from all the years doing it camping out where you couldn't really have a table or anything to do it with. I just got used to doing it in my hands, and I still do it that way at home. We're going to cook these in vegetable oil. You can use any kind of oil you like. If I'm going to cook this kind of meal, I want it in vegetable oil. I don't like potatoes fried in olive oil. I don't like eggs fried in olive oil, but that's just me. You can use anything you want. So when the oil gets hot enough, I drop one little piece in to test it and see if it sizzles and looks like I want it to, and it's ready, so I'm going to put the rest of it in. I like to move it around a little bit and get everything coated in the oil. keeps it from wanting to stick as bad. Sometimes they stick a little bit or want to, but and sometimes they turn out really good. And I always salt and pepper it a little bit. That's about all I put on these, just salt and pepper, and then the main ingredients in a little while. And I just pepper it by side. I don't measure anything.
So what would your potatoes always come out good? You're like Pap. So what's one of your secrets? Like Pap used to tell the story of Bergen Moore only flipped his once.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Right. I mean, but Pap didn't either. I'm just saying, do you have any tips for people that have trouble frying potatoes?
You got to use enough oil, and you got to take your time and keep. And I always like to fry them fairly hot, and you know, a lot of times too is the pan you're cooking them in too. Our pans seem to be seasoned really well, so they don't tend to stick as bad. And if they do, I stay with them and keep pushing them around in the pan like I'm doing here. And once they begin to start cooking and they get a little bit of a crust on them, they're not going to stick anyway. And at some point, I'll cover them with a piece of aluminum foil. And I think that steaming, it helps get the ones on top done quicker, so that you're not cooking the ones on bottom so long that they get burnt and won't stick. Now, I don't know that seems plausible to me, and I've used that technique a lot, so I seem to think it works. It might be somebody else making up for that, I don't know, but that's just the way I do it. I know one thing, they already smell good.
To be a meal by itself.
Absolutely. This right here is what's going to make it real good. These are ramps that we dug a year or so ago and been in the freezer in a jar.
Yeah, and for people that don't know what ramps are, they grow wild. And we have a video where we actually, I think it's the day we dug these, maybe. Yeah. I don't remember. But I will link to that so you can go find out more about ramps. But they grow wild in the mountains of Appalachia. And they're kind of the taste is kind of like you would imagine a cross maybe between a garlic and an onion, but so much better. It's just difficult to explain.
Yeah, and you dig them right time of year, which is in the spring, but you dig them while they're young, they're not as strong, and they're just really, really, really good. They impart really, really good flavor into whatever it is you're cooking. A lot of people associate them with being real strong and bad, but you cook them with stuff and they're not as strong. And they just have such a really good wild flavor that's really good in a pan of potatoes. So one of the secrets that I use, I just stumbled upon it on my own doing. When they start getting close, I will take some of the oil out. And that allows them to get a little crispy, and that keeps them from being sticky. So once they begin to start turning a little bit brown, I like to take the tin foil or aluminum foil off of them, so it's not using the steam. The steam keeps them soft. I want them to get just a little bit crusty and get a little bit of a crunch on the outside, but still soft on the inside. And removing a little bit of the oil and then taking that aluminum foil off, I think helps allow it to be able to do that. And just continue to watch it cook, and when it gets the correct color to suit me, that's when I declare it done and ready to eat. Now they're starting to look pretty. Now I don't want to get them just real super brown, but I like to have some of them that's browner than others and have a little bit of a mixture, because some of them are softer and some of them's a little crustier. And in just in a minute they're going to be ready to take off. And right at the end, when they're pretty close to being done, I like to get most of the oil out of it so they're just not sitting in oil. And I think that helps them keep them from being soggy, in other words. I start out with a little more oil than I need, and then I gradually take it back out. There's probably an easier way of doing this, but this is just what I come up with on my own. Years ago, for lack of really knowing what I was doing, but this is what I come up with, and it works good for me.
Works good for me because they're delicious.
I'll leave just a fuzz of it in there. And that's pretty much the color I'm looking for. They're done, but I like to get them, some of them a little bit crustier than others. It's just a nice mixture. Okay, I always check the grease with a little flour. Watch it move a little bit and it tells me it's about hot enough. That one there is hot enough.
How long does it take? Not long?
No, it takes just 3 or 4 minutes on each side's plenty. The hotter you've got it, the quicker and easier it cooks. I mean, deer meat's like anything else. It's, or in my mind, especially deer meat, is real easy to overcook, and I don't like it overcooked, and that's one of the worst mistakes to do deer meat. Cook it hot and fast, it'll get it done on the outside and get it, you know, medium to well inside, but it still retains its juice. So, and that's where the flavor is. Some people don't like meat that's not completely well done. That's just the way we like it, and that's the way I've always eaten it. It's never hurt me, and that's the way I like it. It don't have any fat content, so it don't have that to keep it juicy. So just the actual juices that's inside the meat is what keeps it from being too dry, and you don't want to cook those out.
If you had a whole lot to do, you would probably, would you change your oil since the flour kind of gets off in it? I mean, you can do it at least.
Yeah, I've scraped that off before when I've had a whole lot to do, and then just added a little bit more oil to it. Generally, it's the other way around. You ain't got enough to do for
Yeah.
the deer.
What a wonderful meal that Matt has made for us. I made the biscuits, but that's all I did. But oh my goodness, I can't wait to try the tenderloin. You get me another fork. I got jelly all over my fork, but I'll try the potatoes. Perfect.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Really soft but crunchy, and the wonderful ramp flavor, which is so good too. Let's see if I can get me a little piece of tenderloin to try it. My favorite meat.
It's good stuff.
So good. This is a feast, Dad. Thanks for cooking for me.
You're quite welcome.
Another way that we love to eat tenderloin, now that you've seen this, or backstrap. I'm never going to quit calling it tenderloin, but is to grill it. So we have a video showing how he grills it. So we'll be sure to link to that. And of course, I have a biscuit video. We'll link to that. I'll also add Papa's pickled beans and corn. They're so delicious. And I don't have a video. I've wanted the past 2 summers to go video him making them, but it's not worked out yet. But I do have a blog post that I documented it several years ago, and I'll link to that.
We used to make those some here, but mine were never as good as his, and I don't know what he does differently, but his is always
So
very good.
So good.
And
yeah.
we've not done it in a while. It's kind of an art. You got to stay with it.
Yeah, and we just eat them straight out of the jar most of the time, but you can like warm them up in butter or cooking oil, olive oil, whatever kind of oil you prefer, and they're good that way too.
They're good anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So we hope you enjoyed seeing how to make one of our all-time favorite meals. This ranks right up there with pinto beans and side meat and cornbread. This is just one of our favorite meals. We hope you enjoyed seeing how to make it. We hope, as always, you'll continue to drop back by often and help us celebrate Appalachia.